Well, good afternoon, everybody, from a wonderfully sunny Cape Town. And it is my pleasure this afternoon to introduce Izele Van Blerk, who is the winemaker at the KWV. And when you see Izele's picture just now, you'll see that she is covered with, the wall behind her is covered in certificates and medals and awards. And that is the mentors range of the KWV. So Izele joined the KWV cellar team in 2009, and she's got a degree in winemaking and viticulture from Stellenbosch University, which is one of our the pinnacles of wine education in South Africa. And she's also worked in Italy, and she's passed some very high-level wine judging courses. So she's one of our national judges in South Africa. And as I said before, she she works on the mentors range in the KWV, and that is the top range of the KWV wines. And although the KWV is a very, very large company, the mentors is really where the magic happens. And that is where Izele arrives with a smile on her face every single morning, because she's looking for something spectacular to happen in that cellar. And over the years, it has. Every year she releases, since last year, she's released a special wine every year. Last year it was Carmenere, which was the wine loving fraternity absolutely adored that wine. And this year we've got a Petit Verdot, but I'm sure that Izele is going to be talking to us about that at length. So from me, over to you, Izele.
Sorry, me and technology. I'm used to wearing gumboots and walking in the cellar, not sitting in front of people, rather standing in front of them. Thank you, Winnie, for the introduction. It's always interesting listening what people have to say when they introduce you, because I learn everything, sometimes new things about myself as well. Yeah, like Winnie said, I've been at KWV since 2009. I started here as an intern, where I just played around in the Mentors cellar, and I've grew up with the brand, the Mentors brand. So the Mentors cellar was established in 2006 as an experimental cellar, where we as the winemakers got the opportunity to play around with different winemaking techniques, different niche varietals, just grapes from all over the Western Cape. So we get grapes from 52 different farms from all over South Africa. And that actually makes not just the KWV, but the Mentors brand so special, because we have the opportunity to play with Shiraz from Swartland, from Stellenbosch, from Elgin, from Paul, from Wellington, and I can name all the varietals, and we will get those varietals from all the different regions in South Africa. I always say I'm actually not working. I'm not a winemaker. I'm actually an artist playing around and enjoying what I do every day, and I'm allowed to make mistakes. And I think with my personality, you'll find out in this 30 minutes that I love talking. I think I can stand in front of the mirror every day and just start talking and just enjoying things and enjoying the passion and the chemistry about wine. And you need to have a passion for what you do. And that's what we're trying to showcase with the Mentors wines. It's chemistry, passion, teamwork, and we're trying to build a brand that's not just the icon in South Africa, but also trying to get it to be an icon in the world. So the Mentors cellar, if you know KWV, KWV is the biggest winery in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's 24 hectares and it's just buildings. It looks like a small little town. We've got almost like, what do you call, we call it, what's robots, traffic lights. It's almost like we have traffic lights on site. And we've got a doctor on site, we've got nurses, we've got a mechanical team, we've got an electricity team, everything. So it's really big, it's 24 hectares. So I always say, if you look at a football field or a soccer field and you times it by 24, this is how big KWV site is. And then in between all these big sellers, we've got this small little boutique cellar. It's a 250-ton cellar, but I usually, in harvest time, I do about 600 tons in the cellar. I take in about 90 different blocks from different farms. So it's crazy during harvest, but it's also exciting because we can do whole bunches, whole berries. We can leave the wine on skins for 2 months if we want to. It's all about experimentation and innovation. So like I said, the cellar was created in 2006 as an experimental cellar, and everything that works in the mental cellar, we take to the bigger cellars. For instance, if a Shiraz from Swartland, I put 30% whole bunches in it, and the next tank I will do 30% whole berries in it. And everything that works in the cellar, we can take to the biggest sellers at KWV and try and lift the quality of the whole brand. We've got a lot of ranges, we've got a lot of different SKUs. Under the mental cellar, there's Cathedral cellar, there's Rudeberg, there's classic wines, there's Laborie wines. So everything that works in this small little boutique cellar, we take to the biggest sellers. I'm going to start with the presentation now, so just bear with me to just share it. So I'm going to talk a bit through what we do, what's the brand strategy, where we want to go, and how we try to build this brand into an icon brand in the world. So our current vintage is 2018 that we're busy launching it. We started selling it yesterday, not yesterday, on Monday. So we focus a lot on the PR of the company, awards, auctions, vertical tastings, and since 2017, we started keeping whole pack stock, just because we want to keep a bit of whole pack stock to start selling it in 5 years' time, or do vertical tastings to showcase it to the world and see the cellaring potential of these wines. So the brand strategy is the red wines we will keep for 24 months in barrels, and now currently we have it for 6 months in bottle. We changed that just because we used to bottle it in November, and then January we would launch it. And we've seen how the wines get better and better in bottle. We currently on 6 months, we're moving to 8 months in bottle. Eventually we want to have the wines for at least 1 year in bottle prior to release. So in the Mentos range, we've got, this is the archive. It's so we've got the Mentos Grenache Blanc, Mentos Chenin Blanc. We've got 3 single varietals: the Petit Verdot, the Cabernet Franc, the Pinotage, and then we've got the Orchestra. That's our Bordeaux style blend, and the Canvas. That's our Rhone style blend. And then we have a limited edition, but I'll explain why we did the limited edition and what we try to do with the limited edition. And then we've got our flagship, that's Perrault. And as you know, Aubrand Perrault is the father of Pinotage. He created Pinotage by crossing Pinot Noir and Hermitage. And that's also how they got the name of Pinotage. It's Pinot from Pinot Noir and Tage from Hermitage. Please feel free to stop me anytime. I can't see your faces anymore, but if you have any questions, just stop and ask any questions if you want to. So this is just how the range looked. We did have a bit of a facelift in 2017, where we did our new labels, where we're focusing on the Mentos and on the different regions. So you'll see the Mentos Grenache Blanc is a wine of origin Paul, and that's a nice thing of the Mentos cellar, is we can start focusing on wine of origin Stellenbosch or Paul or Wellington. With the blends, we will always have coastal on the label. There was some exceptional years where we had the Bordeaux style blend as 100% Stellenbosch, But what we will do is we'll get all these different components, different blocks into the winery. We will keep it separate for the whole 24 months that we mature it in barrels. When we start doing our tastings, we will taste every single block, every single barrel, and then we will make decisions on what goes into the bottle. So it's quite, I always say harvest time is it's hard work, late hours. It's the start of a creation, but then when you get to the blending time, it's almost 3 months of just tasting. It's almost 200 barrels a day. I don't even need to drink wine when I get home in the evening because I've tasted so many wines during the day. So the limited edition. We launched our first limited edition, like Winnie said earlier, the Mentos Carmenere. It's just to reinforce the quality of the wines that KWV can produce. A lot of people see KWV as a volume brand where we produce volume-driven wines, but we actually get the grapes from all over the Western Cape, and we can actually produce exceptional wines, but just not just KWV, but also to showcase what South Africa can present and the quality that South Africa have. And it's also to build a strong brand and build the Mentos brand. We've got new labels, new vintage release. And then in last year, we were doing all these different barrels and tasting, and we had a Petit Shiro. Winnie, you said Petit Verdot, but that Petit Verdot is a standard SKU. The new limited edition is the Petit Shiro 2018. And it's you will be able to get this whole presentation. So I'm just gonna talk through every wine, but the Petit Shiro is on the slopes of Paul Mountain. It is a 0.93 hectare block. It was planted in 2014 and it's eschelus. So we call it stock by palky. So it's small little trees. It's not your normal trellis. And everyone said to us, oh, what are you doing? You're planting Petit Shiro on the slopes of Paul Mountain. It's very hot. And we just took a gamble and the wine is amazing. A lot of dark fruits, plums and cherries, big, bold structure. And it's only 1,000 bottles. So the whole idea with the limited edition is showcasing to the world a new varietal, a different varietal that you don't often get in South Africa as a single bottling. The bottles are numbered 1 to 1,000 with a nice box, and packaging is great. Our brand manager is also listening now, so I must give her a few compliments on the packaging. And it's selling in South Africa rand, it's selling for 650 rand a bottle. And I know in the UK, the Carmenere sold for 45 pounds per bottle. And this is just the look. It's got a wax seal over, it's got a limited edition stamp, 1 to 1,000 bottles with the packaging, with the box. And when you open it, it's got the whole story, where the vignette is, what the philosophy is, what the idea is behind the brand, and what we try to achieve. I'm bottling the next limited edition in 3 weeks' time, but unfortunately, I can't tell you now what it's going to be, but it's also a very exciting varietal, and we trial with all the different varietals. I get into the Mentos cellar, the grapes, I get Tanat, I get Tempranillo, I get Nebbiolo, I get Carignan, Malbec, Petit Verdot, Carmenere, Sangiovese, all these different varietals. And it's like a playground. And I must be honest, some years it's not looking good. But if, like I said, if we don't make mistakes, we will never learn, and we will never be able to produce wines that we are currently producing. So the vintage story is this. Like I said, we've got a Chenin Blanc 2019. This is the new vintages that's just been launched. So we get Chenin Blanc from Swartland and Paarl region. And it's a very rich style, but we also do a bit of natural ferment. The nice thing about South Africa is if you plant it on the right sites, you are able to get very low pHs. And that's, for me, my winemaking philosophy is picking date, you need to be in the vineyard. If your shoes aren't dirty, you're not doing what you need to do. The second thing is managing your pH and your TA. If you can manage your pH and your TA, the lower the pH, the better the ageability and the less sulfur you need to protect the wine against bacteria or microbes. The third thing for me is barrel selection. We buy barrels from about 20 different coopers. We even fly to France and to America to go and evaluate these barrels. We will taste it, they will adjust it according to our style. If you taste oak on a wine, you are hiding something. I usually say winemakers are hiding their mistakes with oak. For me, the oak need to complement the fruit purity, the concentration of fruit. If the oak is overpowering the wine, you are making a mistake. And that for me is the crucial things about winemaking. Your picking date,
Hello.
your pH.
Hello, I'm calling from Jordana Wine, Mr. May. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you.
I'm happy to sir, I hope I'm not interrupting anything.
Well, I'm in a
You know about the number.
I'm in a conference at the moment.
Sorry, we'll call another time. Please continue.
Peter, could I ask you to mute your line, please? Thank you.
Okay, I think it just, yeah. Okay, so just getting back to the three things is picking date, pHTA, and then barrel selection. So the next one is one of my favorite varietals. Just want to go back one step. The Petit Verdot. Petit Verdot is one of the classical Bordeaux varietals, and you don't often get it as a single bottling. We produced our first Petit Verdot under the Mentors label in 2009, and the grapes is from a vineyard in Stellenbosch, and it's actually 3 blocks. The one is in Soloris Pass, so it's a lot of cooler climate. You get all those floral notes, and the other 2 blocks is on one farm in Stellenbosch. The one block was planted in 1997, and the second block was planted in 2014. The 1997 gives you all those concentrated plums and dark cherries, where the 2014 produce a lot of red cherries. So a combination of those 2 blocks and the one in Soloris Pass just gives you all these integrated oak. Petit Verdot is one of those varietals that it's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And if you don't get it right in the winery and you don't manage the tannin, it can be overpowering. I always say adding 5% of Petit Verdot to any blend makes it just 10 times better, because you've got all these pitch black color, you've got the tannin structure, and then you get the fruit complexity. But if you have all 3 of those and you get finesse and integration, it just makes a perfect wine on its own. I just want to take a sip of water. Then the second red wine in the range is a Cabernet Franc. The 2018 Cabernet Franc is from one farm in Stellenbosch. It's also a very interesting farm. What we did with this block is we divided it into 2 pickings. So as you know, Cabernet Franc's got 2 different styles. You've got the Loire style, that's more florals and red fruits, and then you get your typical Bordeaux style Cabernet Franc. That's a bit more dusty road, very bold and beautiful and structured with concentrated fruit. So what I did in the cellar is I divided the block into 2 pickings. We picked at 24 bulling, and that's about 250 grams per liter of sugar. And in the second block, I left for another week so that we can pick it on 26 barley, that's 260 grams per liter. And then I treated it different in the winery. So the one that we picked a bit earlier, we bleed it. So what does it mean when you say you bleed? It is you taking a bit of the juice off while it's still on the skins to make it a bit more concentrated. But with the early picking, we only took off 50 liters per ton because you don't want dark fruits and more concentration in tannins. You only want the red fruits and more elegant style. The second picking, we bleeded, we took off 70 liters per ton. So immediately the volume of wine that is in contact, or the juice that's in contact with the skins, is a lot less. So when you do pump overs or mixing the tank or délestage, you actually get more contact with the skins when you take off a lot more juice. So that immediately gives you more tannin structure, more color, and more fruit. And blending those two components together, I started out by tasting these two components separately and then playing around with 50% of the one, 50% of the other one. But getting that sweet spot between these two different styles is just making it unique. And this wine actually also now going to Sweden for the first time. So we're very, very happy about this wine. Any questions? Okay. So Pinotage. Pinotage is a truly South African varietal. It is a crossing between Pinot Noir and Hermitage. It was bred by Abraham Perrault in 1925. And this varietal is very close to all the South Africans. It's a truly South African varietal. And it's two different vineyard blocks in Stellenbosch. And one gives you a lot of dark fruit and grippy tannins and bold flavors, where the other one, we played a bit around with different experiments, where when the grapes arrived in the winery, I divided it into 3 different tanks. The one tank, I put typical traditional Pinotage style. It is work it very hard at the beginning of fermentation, getting a lot of dark fruits. The second tank, I did Pinot Noir style. So I worked the cap a bit softer so I can get more finer tannins and elegance and red fruit. And the third tank, it was natural ferment. So when I studied at the university, like Winnie mentioned, they said to us, you never do natural ferment on Pinotage. And that was a rule. And I decided, no, let's break the rules a bit. So I decided, let's make a wild child. So it's natural ferment, and that wine is a component that I just add 5% to this blend, and it brings up the brightness and the more the Pinot Noir characteristics into this wine. All the red wines spend about between 18 and 24 months in barrels. We would taste it at 18 months in barrel, and then we will decide if we want to leave it for extra 6 months in barrels before we take it out. And all the Mentos Reds got about 70% new oak, and the rest is second and third full barrels. And the ageability of these wines, so interesting for me with the red wines. In South Africa, it's very often you see pHs of 3.5, 3.6, 3.7 grams a liter, where these wines, I try to get it under 3.5. So the Mentos Pinotage actually got the highest pH of all the red wines, and it's currently sitting at a 3.43. So like I said, the lower the pH, the better your aging potential, the less sulfur you need to use. And you can drink these wines easily after 10, 15, 20 years. Next, Orchestra, it's a lot, but you can read it on your own time. So the Mentos Orchestra is a Bordeaux style blend. It's got not just 5 Bordeaux varietals, but it's got number 6 as well, the Carmenère. So it's a blend of Cabernet, Petit Verdot, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Malbec, and then Carmenère. And I think KWV is very famous for the art of blending. I think we've been doing it for 60, 70, 80 years. If you think about a brand like Rudeberg, we find our niche in blending components just because we get a lot of grapes from different regions. We get the opportunity to trial and error and play around with different varietals, different winemaking techniques, different barrel coopers. So the orchestra is one of those wines when you think about an orchestra, that's also how we got to the name. When you think about an orchestra, all the different instruments doesn't always make the best sound on its own. Like the violin or the piano doesn't always make the best sound. It's the same with all the different Bordeaux varietals. It doesn't always make the best wines on its own. But adding a bit of all the different varietals, adding a bit of all the different instruments, it actually makes an orchestra. That is how we got to the name of orchestra. And it's really, truly reflecting in what we try to achieve with this wine. It's a Bordeaux style, but with a New World touch, with the fruit that you have on the nose and on the palate. The canvas is, it's one of those wines that it's the chemistry side and the thinking side of winemaking, because you actually play around with varietals like Grenache Noir, Cinsault. It's sensitive varietals that you need to treat differently in the winery. But the canvas is, I always see myself standing in front of a blank canvas, and you put your hands in buckets of paint, and then you just throw it at this blank canvas. And that's what we're trying to do with this blend in the ranges. It's a Shiraz-based blend, but with a bit of Grenache Noir, Petit Shiraz, Tempranillo, Carignan, Mourvedre, Tannat. And it's from all these different regions. So it's from Wellington. Most of the Shiraz is from Wellington and from Swartland. We get a bit of the Petit Shiraz from Paul, Tempranillo from Wellington. Mourvedre is also from Swartland. So we do have all these different components and different regions that we can actually play with. And if you look at the presentation, you're all going to get the presentation where you can go and read about all the different blocks, where it's situated, what we try to do with it, the soils that it's on, the age of the vineyards. This is my December holiday project, is writing stories about all the wines after bottling. So I wrote all these stories that you're going to have and that you're going to see, and you can understand what the effort that goes into every single wine. It's so interesting when you start with the blends is we will book out two to 3 months where we will taste every day, and we will taste all the Shirazes, and we will taste all the Grenaches, the Petit Shiraz, the Tempranillo. And then the wines that we selected, the blocks that we selected, we will bring back to the table, and then we'll start tasting every single barrel. It is a blind tasting, and we will taste every single barrel. And then it would be allocated to a specific brand. So at the end, when we've done all the Shirazes, the Grenaches, the Petit Shiraz, the Tempranillos, the Carignan, the Mourvedres, we will bring all the components back to the table, and then we will decide which wines in which percentages will go into this blend. We will make up pilot blends, and we will do a blind tasting of all these wines. We will give it a rating, and after 4 or 5 times of rating, because it's quite difficult to decide just on one wine, we get to the final blend. And I will usually play around with 1,000 liters, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. And the wine that wins on the table on the day, that is the wine that we will actually put in the bottle. We'll go a bit quicker. I see we are running out of time. So the last but not least is the Perrault. It's our flagship brand. It is a Cape blend. So what does a Cape blend mean? it needs to have at least 30% of pinotage in the blend, but not more than 70%. So the Perrault, we produced our first Perrault K blend in 2010. We used to have a Perrault that was 100% Shiraz, but it's a tribute to Abraham Perrault, the father of pinotage. We have the name, and we decided that we want to honor him as an icon in the wine industry, not just at KWV, but in the wine world. So this is a blend of 33% of pinotage, 29% of Cabernet, 24% Shiraz, 7% Petit Verdot, and 7% Petit Shiraz. The base of this blend will always be pinotage, Cabernet, and Shiraz. And then you just put the makeup on, adding the salt and pepper. That's a bit of Petit Verdot, or a bit of Petit Shiraz, or Malbec. Some years it can be Cabernet Franc. But this wine spent 18 to 24 months in 100% new oak. It's all French oak. The selection process is exceptional, and we try to get a perfect wine. Perfect wine meaning what we see stylistically, what we want to produce in this range. Just quick, a few awards that we've been winning over the past few years. 2018, you can go through it. There's the Sauvignon Blanc, and Veritas is a very big wine awards in South Africa. Old Mutual Trophy Wine Show, also a very big wine competition in South Africa. We've got International Wine Challenge, Tim Atkin ratings, Gilbert and Gallard International Challenge ratings. And the wines are, what we try to do with the awards is we don't just want to enter it in South Africa. We want to enter it all over the world, because we're trying to create an icon brand, not just in South Africa, but all over the world. There's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more experiments to do. There's so much that we try to do, and we want to be this place where we can create a library for the South African wine industry. And we want to do all the experiments, bring some new innovations, and just drive with passion and tasting. The most important thing about winemaking is tasting wines. You can look through all the awards, and yeah, that is me. If you have any more questions, or if you have any questions, feel free to ask me now.
I've got a question. Hi, it's Marianne. What do you enjoy more, creating a blend like orchestra, or do you enjoy like maybe showcasing a so-called lesser grape like Petit Verdot on its own? What do you enjoy most out of the two?
When I started making wine 10 years ago, I thought every single block that came into the winery, I thought, yes, it needs to be the perfect wine. You need to make and create the perfect wine. And then after 3-4 years, yeah, I realized that you won't make every single wine, can't be the perfect wine. Making all the different components to start blending, it's a total mind shift where you need to go. Blending is an art, but also getting a niche varietal right that no one have ever put in the bottle, or no one have the, if I can say it, the guts to go and put a Carmenere in a bottle in South Africa, or a Nebbiolo in a bottle, or a Carignan. Having the confidence to try and create those wines, for me, is, I like making niche varietals. We need to be different. That's for me a big focus. We need to be different, and it's all about education also, because especially in South Africa, the people love drinking Sauvignon Blanc. They will just go out and drink Sauvignon Blanc, and because they're not familiar with a Semillon or a Grenache Blanc or Petit Verdot or Cabernet Franc. If you think about a consumer and you go into a liquor store, a wine shop, you will see 95% of the shelves would be Cabernet, Shiraz, Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc Chardonnay. That is what you are going to see. And then you'll see a niche varietal like shelf with maybe 5 varietals on it. I know there's a big trend currently in the world with Cinsaults and Grenache Noirs and different styles of wines. And I think it's good, pushing the boundaries, pushing the limits. And I think we haven't even came close to 10% to producing the best wines in the world.
Okay. And why in your core range of the mentors you only have 2 white wines? I guess that's kind of the same. That question's a bit linked. Why haven't you got more white wine in the core range?
So when we started this brand, 14 years ago, we had quite a lot of different wines in the range. At one stage, we had 21 different wine SKUs. And in 2016, we decided that we need to focus more because the salespeople just didn't know where to focus. Then every single year, we were very happy as winemakers because if something looked good in a winery, we just said, yes, we can bottle it. And we put it in a bottle, very proud, the quality was there. But the salespeople didn't know where to focus and what to do. And so the one person will focus on Sauvignon Blanc, the second one will focus on Semillon. Then you had a Sauvignon Blanc Semillon blend. We had a Chardonnay. We had all these different varietals. And we just decided that we're going to focus on two white wines and 3 red wines. We actually, the Cabernet Franc wasn't part of the initial, the standard SKUs. I brought it back 2 years ago because I just really have a passion for Cabernet Franc. And then we had the 2 blends. And also red wines at a higher price point is selling good. It's difficult to sell a white wine at a higher price point. I think the market is very niche. The people need to understand it. You need to educate the people, the consumers, on higher price white wine. And the quality of I don't know in the UK prices, but in South Africa, if you have a under 100 Rand bottle of wine, you actually get exceptionally good quality. If you go over 100 Rand, the people are starting to think, yeah, what am I buying now?
Mm.
Winnie, any comments on that?
I think that the lower price point barrier has shifted in the last few years, especially when we consider the exports and the prices that people get for their export wines. Some of that is knocked onto South African wines as well, and also because we are getting more international wines in South Africa, which are priced normally higher than the barrier you're speaking about. But the South African wines are actually better at that price point than the ones that we can buy on import for the same amount of money. I personally think that our wines are way too cheap. And I think for me, the Mentors is actually one of the vehicles where we can push that boundary because they are of the highest quality wines. I would just like to see more of them. More out in the shops, more out in restaurants, more out where people can actually access them easier. Because at the moment, I'm sure that the biggest selling of those wines are from an emporium. Yeah.
Yes, that is.
But it is difficult to make a big shift in one go.
So we are about 80% is sold now internationally. 20% in South Africa. Since last year, we've been on allocation with the wines. It's quite a proud moment. We worked so hard on this brand, and the last 3 years, it suddenly just started clicking together. All the plans that the marketing team's been doing, the sales force are working exceptionally well, especially internationally. And we are now basically on allocation. What we do is when we bottle, we leave it now almost for 8 to 10 months in the bottle. Then we will send out an allocation to all the countries. And that's the wines that you're going to have for the next year. So if you sell it within the first 2 months, you sold out. And I'm very happy. I looked at the allocations yesterday, and the 2017 vintage is now all gone. And the 2018 that we're launching now is current vintage. We have a bit of old pack stock, and I think it's hard work that we've put in over the past, I can almost say 10 years, but the last 3 years we've been just getting things right, or trying to get right. And that's all. It's not just a winemaker can make wine. If you don't have brand support, you don't have a brand manager, a team that supports you, that believe in the same things that you believe in, you won't create an icon brand. So you need to have a focused sales force, a marketing team that focus on premium brands, and all drive with the same passion. We have quite a lot of fights about things, but we try to pull to the right direction. But we still have a lot of work to do. Like you said, we need to be in more restaurants. We need to get in more boutique wine. But the unfortunate thing in South Africa is, if I look at the UK, there's a lot of boutique wine shops. There's a lot of places to sell wine in specialized wine shops. In South Africa, we only have a few boutique wine shops. We don't have a wine shop where you can walk in and you can buy wines from all over the world. It's basically South African wines and a small section of premium wines, and then maybe one shelf of international wines if you're lucky. I can count it on my hand how many boutique wine shops we have in South Africa. Sorry, I'm just reading the questions here. Yeah. Kim, the Petit Shiraz vines it was planted in 2014. We got our first very small crop in 2015. But then from 2016 to 2018, we really trialed an error in the winery. And it's amazing how you work with specific vineyards for almost 10 years, and then suddenly it's like it shines. It's like a teenager that just suddenly grows up, and you get that perfect balance and perfect fruit purity in wines in specific vintages. Is your choice of niche varieties being influenced by climate change? Not really. I think in South Africa, we are still discovering, even though we have been making wine for more than 350 years, I think we are still discovering new sites, new terroir for plantings, and we haven't decided where we want to plant all these different varietals. Petit Verdot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Shiraz, there's only 181 hectares of Petit Shiraz planted in the whole of South Africa. And we need to focus on that. It's like a Carmenere. There's like 10 hectares planted or 8 hectares planted in the whole of South Africa. So it's really, we need to get the people more knowledgeable about varietals, these special varietals. I love the sound of 100% Tempranillo. I'm trialing with it. You can't be good in making everything perfect. Tempranillo is a very interesting varietal. I get grapes from Stellenbosch and also from Wellington. I've had a lot of people commenting and saying, yes, we need to get a Tempranillo, but we're working on it. I've got still about 30 years of making wine, so hopefully Tempranillo would be one of the limited editions soon.
Are there more questions?
You said that in school they taught you not to do wild ferment on Pinot Noirs. Why? The reason for that is Pinot Noirs is very sensitive to produce volatile acidity, and the grapes arrive in the winery with a volatile acidity of 0.0 before even starting producing it or making the wine, and it is very sensitive. And Pinot Noirs, the volatile acidity just goes up to 1 grams per liter, and the legal limit is 1.2, and you actually can pick it up on Pinot Noirs. You can smell it. It smells almost like cutic removal when you pick up the glass. So that's the reason why we try to stay away from natural wild ferments on Pinot Gras. Shiraz adaptable. Yes, you can do wild ferment on Shiraz every day. Cabernet also not too keen on that. On your wine online. Or the fact sheets on your wine online, I cannot find. You can go onto KWV's website, onto Mentors. It would probably be there. Yes, correct. Someone shared it. Yeah. Okay. We can also share it with you if you want it.
But Izele, if I can just make a comment, and that is that KWV is always seen as this very, very large company producing very, very large volumes. And I always have the argument about particularly the brandy and the Mentors, that those are both niche areas within a large company. And like you said earlier on, it looks like a village, the whole of KWV, but that small area where the Mentors magic happens is like a boutique cellar within the bigger workings of the village. Yeah. And that is a message that I like to get out about the Mentors.
And it's the tanks are, I'm not the tallest person in the world, but the tanks are the same size that I am. It's really small. Everything is kept separate. The cellar is really small. We only a team of 3 people, myself and 2 cellar assistants that works with me, that been working with me for 10 years. And everything's hands-on. Where in the bigger cellars, everything's automatic. You just press a button, do the pump overs, the mixing of the tanks. When you load the presses, it's automatic. In the Mentor cellar, we actually physically do the pump overs. There would be someone sitting on top of the tank, someone at the bottom of the tank. We will do punch downs. I taste the wines. We make decisions on tasting. There's no recipes. The recipes is in here, and I make changes when I taste. There's no. I don't have a Mentor's recipe that I can give to someone. It's understanding your blocks, understanding the goal, what you want to do, and I don't try to create a style that copies Bordeaux or Rhone or even Swartland in South Africa. We want to create a Mentor style that we like and what we want to strive to and what we see can almost conquer the world one day. And that is also looking at fruit purity and ageability and integration of oak. And yeah, the wine needs to have legs. It needs to age for 20 years. Or rather you can make 2 different styles of wine. You can make blockbusters that's going to win all the awards in the world, or you can actually make wines that can age for another 20 or 30 years. And I would prefer making wines that I can one day, when I'm 65 or 75, sit on the veranda and still enjoy wines that I made 30 years ago. And you all will be drinking them then. Okay, you're just explaining about the fact sheets. Any more questions?
Well, if there are no more questions, Izele, I think that we can sort out the fact sheets for those who want them.
Sorry,
thank you.
Quick question. Has the Mentors Peril replaced the Tribusum?
Yeah, sorry, I saw that question now. It's the same wine. We just changed the name.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's still the wine in the bottle is still the Tributum blend, but we just brought in Peril into the Mentors range because Peril was always standing on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's now just part of the Mentors range. It's the same wine. Yeah.
Any more questions? Oh, Tanya says she will share the fact sheets for those who want. So anybody you can just send your request to Andrea, and she'll sort it all out for you. Well, Izele, it's always fun listening to you, and I can see the excitement in your face and jumping up and down in your chair. And I think that makes Tanya's job so much easier to be able to present such a lovely product to the world. And I hope that everybody gets to try the Petit Syrah. Sorry about the Petit Verdot, but that's also one of my favorites. So maybe I'm just hooked on that one. And I'm looking forward to tasting the Petit Syrah as soon as it's available. So thank you very much and have a lovely weekend.